Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, DL Chapter 38, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Select Board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public or parties with a right and requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend this meeting in person, or for those who wish to do so remotely. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 38, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the Berkshire Ed and also by the town of Barrington. Any members of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items, those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So just to give a little overview for those who've not attended these meetings or forgotten, we will go through tonight first the high priority items. We'll go in depth on those. Remember, many of those high priority items are well on their way to completion. So even though another board may have set this as a high priority, changing these now, while possible for some, may be very expensive or impossible for others. Then we'll give any updates in the moderate priority if anyone has any questions, and then we'll discuss additions to the high priority at the end. So I'll turn it over to Mark.
So for anyone joining us for the first time, we've been holding these working sessions twice annually, usually in January and June of each year for about 4 years now. And it's an opportunity for the board and the public to hear some updates from staff and to discuss our priorities for the next 6-month stretch. So I'm going to lead us off tonight. I think we'll just start right at the top and go right down the high priority list. We'll lead us off with an update from or about Houston Waterworks, and Chris is going to go ahead and share his screen so that when we're doing that, you can follow along. So the select board met in executive session after the system appraisal was completed and presented publicly in late February of this past year. I continue to provide updates to the board and to the public during my town manager update time on regular meeting agendas, and I think we're getting closer to providing another update to the public. That should happen very soon. In the meantime, we began a conversation last night, and we'll continue that conversation on June 26th about how we utilize that $250,000 in state funding, that relief aid, when we do finally receive it. So you'll see some social media posts over the next couple of weeks, just reaching out to Houstonic residents, encouraging them to attend on the 26th and provide input at that time.
Feel free to ask questions or comments after each one is done.
Just for the public update, and I know we haven't really talked about how that's going to look, but I am curious about the effect on real estate prices, and it would be nice to have someone, maybe, Houstonic Realty or someone there that talks about, the effect on economic development and real estate.
When we do a public.
When we have the public update, yes, just so we can get some information as well.
Are you thinking the public update will be just like a release, or will we actually be holding like a session that people can attend?
Yeah, the public update will be as part of our regular agenda, and it won't be a separate meeting. I mean, unless something huge comes up that we want to have one, but right now I'm not anticipating it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
affordable housing and aging in place. Chris.
Sure. You wanna wait till train goes by? Maybe we'll get lucky. So in terms of affordable housing. Well, the board's aware that we've made a significant investment of the ARPA funds in affordable housing. I think it's 1.3 million total this year, for a few projects. The Windflower, the Sumner Block acquisition by the CDC, and upgrades to the CDC owned project over on Hillside Avenue. Town meeting appropriated a sizable amount of free cash to the Housing Trust for its programs. The Affordable Housing Trust received a grant to build out the North Plain Road site with Habitat for Humanity, and you know that it received a special permit for the PERD through this board. CPA funds over the last few years is over $1 million has been appropriated for affordable housing projects, including Great Barrington Affordable Housing Trust projects and the private sector. We've applied for a community development block grant for this year, and that will hopefully fund home owner rehabilitation programs for low and moderate income existing homeowners. The housing trust programs like down payment and rental assistance programs are continuing. And the housing trust is being strategic too about possible properties that might come on the market to be rehabbed, redeveloped, acquired for permanent affordable housing. So, and the Sonic School, that's in process as well. So there's a lot going on in this category. There's a lot of resources and energy from various boards, including your subcommittee with the planning board. So a lot of resources and time to be spent here, and happy to take any questions or, get into a little bit more detail if you like.
One of the questions I would have, maybe just semantics. At this point, there's a lot of talk about workforce housing as well as affordable. Should we just change the title of that? Because I think that those are both things that are being worked on anyways. And there's more discussion about workforce than there has been in a number of years.
Oh, I think that's fine. A lot of the focus is on, we need housing to provide for workforce, to provide the base for economic development for businesses.
Exactly.
I think that's,
So what's your request?
Just to change that from affordable housing aging in place to affordable housing, workforce housing aging in place.
Also adding something.
Just adding something to it, but I'm not sure we're really adding any more work because it's being worked on already.
right.
I just thought you wanted to take out before.
No, not at all.
So it clarifies that workforce is also part of this.
Yeah, part of our priority of ours.
I guess I just have a question as far as all the way across, and I agree with Steve that workforce housing is something that I agree with him on, and want that defined at what does that mean as far as AMI and all the above, but also with all three, where's our goal? Like what percentage of each? Is there a goal? Is there, what are we working towards? And if we can establish that as far as a percentage of how we break it down, I don't know, but I guess, I'm sure housing is always going to be on demand, but is there a certain percentage that we're looking for? 15% affordable housing, 15% affordable or workforce housing.
Are you talking about the breakdown?
The
How much
breakdown, yeah.
effort goes into each?
Not effort,
Or
but just how much
From what to what?
housing stock do we want to have in which percentage of it? Is it 20%? I guess I just, we do have a lot of projects on our docket, and just wondering as far as long-term goals, what are they? So.
Yeah, well, definitely the housing needs assessment was really valuable a few years ago, and speaking for the housing subcommittee that Garfield and I are on, we're systematically going through all the various options and looking at a whole range of, from senior housing to affordable housing to workforce housing. And, taking in all the different, possibilities and breaking it down in terms of, okay, make sure we're not focusing too much on just affordable, it's workforce as well as senior. And so we're not at really the point that we're looking at percentages, but we're trying to make it evenly divided, that we're hitting all the points.
That is one reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't mind us all getting together, or at least, the select board and the sub-house committee,
Yeah,
because then you'll see.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we're doing quite a bit of,
Yes,
heavy
yeah,
lifting.
I don't know if a lot of other people are aware.
Yeah. Yeah, we have
But
quite,
I think Eric's question is, how do we know enough is enough, or what is, any project you want to do, anything on here, you would have a goal. And I'm not sure we're ready to define that tonight.
yeah.
No,
But,
yeah.
but, we got to 10%, we had 10% affordable housing. And I'm not sure I thought we'd get to that as quickly as we did, as a town. I'm not taking credit for it as a board or as anything else. So, when people stop complaining that they can't hire people because no one can afford to live here, and that may never happen in our
Right.
lifetime, but it's a good question. It really is a good question that I think we should put on a future agenda.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, there's, the waiting list is just endless. I mean, speaking for construct, I mean, we have over 400 people waiting for housing just in Great Barrington. And I know with the CDC is opening up, they're having a ribbon cutting for Windrush, and they have 3 people applying for each unit. I mean, so the need is so great, and, you could walk down the street and see the Help Wanted sign. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of room for
Yeah.
growth, but I think it's always good to have an end goal and say, okay,
Yeah.
when is enough? And one thing I did want to add was that there's 2, well, actually there'll be 3. So there's a senior deferral the HSC, the housing subcommittee has recommended that the select board will be putting on an agenda coming up. And then we also have an affordable housing tax exemption proposal that we were hoping to discuss, that we did briefly bring to the planning board and select board at a meeting, and a real estate transfer fee. So those 2 things have kind of risen in terms of possibilities of coming in before the town for a special town meeting, but that's, among many different options we're looking at in tackling the housing crisis. But we are very, very systematic, but I think you make a good point. We need to have a goal,
I just want to say, I think we all are quite aware of what the needs are, and I don't think we shouldn't be going over them, but I think we're all ensconced in that. And I don't know if I'm not sure how to say that. I'm saying we're not gonna overwork it, but we are aware of it. So let's do it instead of having to figure it out more, because we already know what the need is. But I also don't want to get hung up on a percentage. I like the idea, but I'd hate to think that, okay, well, we're gonna stick at 10%, and maybe it should be higher or it should be lower. So I want to hope that we can still be flexible with the percentage.
I had a question for Chris, just on everything you laid out. How are you feeling resources wise? Do you have everything you need as far as staff and time to actually go after all of these projects?
Well, I think the burden is shared, as I mentioned, across a lot of different boards and committees. So it's not all on me, which is good. A lot of the funding that we devote goes to partners who we contract with, whether it's, it might, or developers, like Recycle or academic community. So we do as much as we can with partners. We could do a lot more with more staff, but I think we're doing very well.
And just because I think, number 2 on the list, I think we all agree that this is a top priority that needs to have all the resources it needs. As one answer, thing.
Yeah, actually, the housing subcommittee is working with Chris right now. So what we did is we took the worksheet that we have, that has all the different options about attacking the housing crisis, and we sent something to Chris and said, can you give us some sense of the leadership and the town resource of the resources and the amount of work that town staff will be forced to do. So we've been working with town staff, really to make sure, we're having a realistic picture of really how much we're putting on the shoulders of Chris and everyone.
Right.
And, do we have the ability to partner with other, entities to take, this heavy lift off us? So we're very, very aware of that.
I just wanted to be mindful of the money spent. I know if we're going to need to hire more staff, people might not be excited about more money coming out of their paychecks to hire more people. So I'd like to be mindful of that and try to work what we have and
Yeah.
not cost the taxpayers any more money, because
And we also
everyone knows they're not excited about paying more money for stuff.
And we also know, unless it's grant funded, this fiscal year is already coming up on us in July 1st and budget's been approved, so we're not gonna be hiring anyone from this year's budget necessarily. There's some consultant money in there, but
Yeah, I appreciate the housing subcommittees thinking very strategically about what initiatives would make sense in terms of big bang for little bucks and little time. So I think as they work through that process and bring some recommendations to the boards, I think that'll help flush that out a little bit more.
okay, let's move along.
Okay, I'm gonna take the next one. It's ambulance service study. Normally Chief Berger would be covering this, but since he's no longer here, I'll tackle it. This is on our high priority list, but it's listed as a long range goal of the board. And this is something Chief Berger was working on with SBA or Southern Berkshire Ambulance before he left in March. And this topic will be assigned to our new fire chief when he begins work here in Great Barrington in early September. And I guess the last thing I want to just say on this is that, I think this is probably something that will require a regional approach since it impacts many South County towns. So perhaps it's a conversation that we need to revisit with our neighbors.
Howard, go ahead.
Oh, did we find out what the other towns agreed on in terms of funding? Because of the ambulance, they were going to different towns, we had committed a certain amount of funding and.
No, I do
just
have
wondering.
on my to-do list a reminder to reach out to the new Southern Berkshire Ambulance Director and just confirm that all member towns have approved appropriations at town meeting.
Okay.
That meet the request from Southern Berkshire Ambulance.
Okay.
We have not been billed yet for fiscal 24's services. We won't until after the new fiscal year in July. We have some time.
Brooks Garage.
At Quick's Garage, this past winter with EPA's technical assistance, we did complete a market study of the building and reuse feasibility study. And the intention of that was to lay the groundwork for the Housatonic Improvement Committee and this board to get our heads around what is realistically possible for the building, what the costs might be. So we have that report, the existing conditions, we have a financial model that we can use and plug in different scenarios into that model and see what comes out, what's realistic. So that can form the basis of discussions to put the property out on the market, to auction it, to RFP it, similar to what we did with the Sonic School. So it's a asset, it's real estate, it's a strategic asset that you have. We can put that on an agenda for a future time to talk about, or maybe that's something that HIC starts with, that's up to you. A subcomponent of that is to do a test of the water quality in that well. We know that for regulatory purposes, it can't be used for a public drinking water source. But there could be other uses for it. So we're going to do a DEP approved EPA level test on that water source. A number of people have done individual or proprietary tests, but We'll do the real thing with EPA's help, which is great. So next step, I think, is for this board and the Housatonic Improvement Committee to discuss, lay out a calendar timeline for reuse, redevelopment, disposition.
Is that report ready to dive into, the one that you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that I sent. I'll make sure you all have it. I can't remember who I sent it to.
So maybe it's, so we can move this along. Have a joint meeting with Housatonic Improvement and present the report and talk about it. So that, because there've been a couple people who, over the last 6 months, have asked me about the building who are legitimately interested in it. So it might be something we can get off your plate at some point. So maybe we'll schedule that at some point.
Sounds good.
Housatonic Community Center.
The installation project's done, the waterization work's done. The storage for the pickleball and users is done. The Parks Commission's done a great job in publicizing it. Pickleball's topping out every week. As far as the heating system, we don't have it in a like full budget, but we should look at it in the future years as part of maybe the whole town asset management.
So where are we with grants on this? Because one of the things, and I realize it's been relatively recently, when we finished the last project, we finished it with some extra town money because we wanted to be eligible for more grants. Where are we? Are we ready to apply for those? Or?
So we closed out, they came and done the final inspection to make sure work's done. I know recently there was an email, I think we should take care of that now. I think we're ready to apply.
We closed out previous grant. We're gonna work with regional planning again to help us apply for and coordinate the work of a future Department of Energy Resources grant. And this could be one of those projects.
Correct.
That grant cycle usually opens up after the new year, right?
I can't recall.
I think the deadline for applications is usually February, 1st of March, something like that, so.
Can I
Yeah.
just, with the community center, the place is looking great and I love that it's, always busy now. You know, not only just with basketball, but pickleball and, I think it's Tai Chi and everything else, Rose Street Youth Project being there. It's great. One thing, if we could put it somewhere in that line, just as you enter the building, maybe some new tile or some cosmetic stuff there. I noticed during the, when setting up and helping with the farmers markets that were going on there, that front door sometimes seemed to be a little bit of a tripping hazard. And then if, you know, I know we already did the budget season, but if possible, maybe interior painting or something like that at the main space. But those were the 3 items. I was just thinking if we can plan for at some point to upgrade. Right now, if you walk in there, there's a bunch of mats down, but if those mats move, you can see that the tile's been really deteriorated, and the more it's getting used, I think the more important it would be to clean it up there in the front, so.
I'm sure Joe can work on that.
And can I ask, I see that the conference room is included in the description on the line. Do we have any plans for that moving forward?
We need to get it cleaned up to start with. You know, it will be used over summer and rain days by, Southern Berkshire Community Center, when they're doing the program up there. But other than that, there's no, the pickleball people using to change their shoes right now.
It's like the locker room.
Yeah.
One of the things that would be nice if it had, and it may have this, Eric, you may tell us, if we're gonna have meetings up there, not just select board, if it has Zoom capacity, has Wi-Fi capacity, so we can actually do that.
Exactly, I was going to have an owl, I think, because right now, if we do a meeting, you have to pick it up.
Yeah, I have an owl available that the town has let us use that I grab.
And then-
Right.
And down the road, if we can get a TV in there too, we do a hybrid meeting, so we can actually have a way for people to like speak to the group, you know, to meetings that are assembled there. Just right now, it's someone has to bring a laptop and you kind of have to crowd around it.
Okay, I mean, I think that's a good goal, because
Yeah.
we don't have a second conference, and we do in the libraries and the fire station, but not in Housatonic.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that, I think that's really something that we've been shooting for a while with the upgrades. So I think that would be a logical next step.
Great idea.
Yeah.
What I would say too is we have been having our HIC meetings there. And once because for a while we're having them at the fire station in town, when we moved them back to the Housatonic after the Wi-Fi upgrade, it's usually a full room, which has been nice.
But you're not doing it hybrid, you're doing it just in person, right?
No, well, we are doing the last handful of meetings have been hybrid because I've been grabbing an owl.
I'm not sure it was posted that way the last one I looked at. That's why I didn't go to it.
Yeah,
I couldn't go to it, and it didn't have a link.
There were maybe two that were hybrid, but the last two, I believe, being on the party park, we had, that was hybrid.
Okay, I'll look again, because I used to go when there's no school committee from home, but then the last one I looked at didn't have a link, and I was disappointed, because I do like joining it, but.
yeah, no, I think the last handful or last couple, 2, 3 have been.
Okay,
At
good.
least I've had the owl set up there. So, I assume that there is a link there, but
Okay.
I'll double check moving forward.
Good,
Yeah.
that's great.
So we'll take a look at whatever we can accomplish in fiscal 24, some of the easier, more. Some of the easier things you just mentioned, tile, front door repairs, interior painting, and then anything we can't cover in our current fiscal 24 budget, we'll make a note and share it going into fiscal 25.
Housatonic School.
Well, the focus recently has been working with WDM, the designated developer for the school. Getting the legal documents settled between the attorneys, the purchase and sale agreement, development agreement. We've been really active with Dave Carver and the developer team to sketch out their site plans and proposals and figure out how to bring utilities to upgrade the electric and how to do everything in the building. Public Works has been great, you know, keys and boarding the windows and make sure it's safe and secure. While it's kind of in limbo, before the legal documents are signed by you all and the developer comes with a special permit for the multifamily use there. In the meantime, they're also seeking funding to pay for portions of the work. So I feel like the designated development team is working really hard. We're supporting them well. And hopefully we'll see some more activity this summer in terms of taking that proposal forward through permitting and the purchase and sale agreement.
Do you have a sense that they're meeting the timeline that they expected when they first pitched it to us, or are they behind, or?
I think it's behind because of legal work, not because of your staff or because of the development team's staff. I think there's a lot of I's and T's. I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed, I think. So I think staff on both sides are itching to see some progress and get this back in front of you.
So without putting pressure on you, we meet again, strategic planning in January. Will this be off our list by then, do you think? The only should change?
Do you want to move on?
Yeah,
I can't say. Yeah, I can say.
we're hoping.
Yep.
Okay. Housatonic 5?
Nothing new to report there. As you know, the borrowing authorization for the make-ready costs was approved at town meeting. The next steps really are to apply for grants, write the agreements with contractors to actually go out and do the make-ready work. So we'll keep you up to date on that, but nothing new to report at this point.
Next is the infrastructure. Joe, why don't you come up to the microphone, because you're gonna be here a while. And why don't you just go over your entire list, whether everything's infrastructure and the amount of work you have is worth giving you a lot of
We
time.
want to go over all this stuff.
We do want to go with the whole list. I think, I find this really interesting and rewarding. Watching you work like a dog and us take credit for it. Perfect.
All right, so, I'll start with bridges. Maybe I'll skip to the second one. Everyone's wondering what the markings are over the Brown Bridge, the old Brown Bridge. And that's actually Mass DOT. They're doing their preliminary layout there, and they're actually marking out utilities and different things to capture on a layout plan. The plans are just in the beginning stages, so there's nothing to share yet with us. I have asked Mass Highway as cross sections become available, so we know if there's bike paths on it, we know if there's sidewalks on it, things of that nature. We'll be notified when they get to the 25%. So on the second item, there's the current list of Cottage Street, Division Street, and the Brown Bridge, all will be advertised for bidding in FY25.
What exactly are they doing? Resurfacing or is it for the new bridge
I
or?
think it's a bridge replacement.
It's the bridge replacement, okay.
We're talking about the Cottage Street Bridge.
No, the Brown Bridge.
There's three bridges that the state is working on replacement. Division Street, Cottage Street, and the Brown Bridge.
The Brown.
Oh,
This is the one we just had painted. Which Brown Bridge?
Oh, yeah, yeah, the pink one. The new pink one.
The old green bridge that turned red. and red.
That's
There
not
was
pink,
brown.
that's fading. into
And
pink.
brown and, yeah.
Right.
Not sure we'll all see them, they're advertising.
So is that's gonna come before the Cottage Street, obviously, because or
It's
that's,
hard to say.
oh, we don't know, and they're not telling
Yeah,
us.
they're all listed,
Go ahead, and then
they're all listed for advertising in FY25, so it's gonna be.
Wow.
Funding and stuff like that.
Yeah, Cottage Street has been on FY25 since we closed it.
Right.
So do we get any kind of say when they do this, or is it just like they tell us and
No,
we just hold our breath?
well, I think we'll get say on the design, when it gets to 25%, they'll ask for the whole of public hearing.
Yeah,
And I believe that will be invited to. So I've asked for cross sections because, we kind of want to know what's going on the business street, if they're gonna be, bike paths or walking, walking path like the temporary gas line. There's, going that road of.
so they're not putting a roundabout at the Brown Bridge, right? Sorry. Just kidding.
Get it out there.
Governor, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. A while back, and people had been inquiring quite a bit about when the Cottage Street Bridge was gonna be done, and we were touching it because the state was gonna do it, and they were gonna incur the $5 million cost.
Yep.
Well, just in roundabout thinking, this shouldn't be any more than a year or two away tops.
Well, they said FY25 and we're still not there yet, so. That's, since we closed it before you were on the board, we said this is gonna be closed a while, it'll be FY25 at the earliest. And so we're still shooting for that time.
That's for advertising, but at the end of,
How long will that actually be?
what was the question?
How long will it actually be what will be the time? And you said when they, in FY25, we're just going out for a bid at this point as
That's
well?
all they're saying on their website.
So this could be another year or
It could
two,
be
even half.
at the end of FY25, they advertise it, and, depending on funding, then go out for construction the following year, then a year, 18 months of construction.
But is this all under the purview of the state and we can't do anything about that? And to me, it just seems like it's taking longer than it should when we were told initially and when everybody was grabbing about when they're gonna do the bid. Well, we're not gonna do it because the state's gonna take care of it in 5 years, they're gonna pay $5 million. Well, now it sounds like it's could be 7 or 8 years.
They're still paying, and we could always have the option of funding it for $5 million, but. I'm still reluctant to even broach that subject if the state still was interested, which they are. We're still on the tip list, so.
Well, I'm not saying that I think we should do it or anything like that. I'm just thinking that it's not gonna be done when we believe it to be done, and people aren't gonna be happy. That's my point. Not that we should take it up and jump right on it, but it's not being done the way it was explained originally.
Well, right now, we're not. It probably will be the case, but right now it's not the case because we said FY25, we're not there yet. But you're right, it probably, but what state project isn't behind at some point. But you're right.
Well, it's not a blase thing to say, though. It's not blase what say, it's not, of course, that happens, but it's making it. We'll see how people
Yeah.
react.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of
Something
other
like
towns
that.
saying the same thing we're saying, you know, like, when is it gonna get done? So we're.
But I live in other towns,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
these are other
Yeah.
great parents.
yeah, no, I hear you.
So, jumping back up to the first one, Mass DOT inspects all our bridges and culverts that exceed 20 feet across. So we take a note and we've created like a high level asset management, so we make sure we're focusing on our bridges at right. And, you know, I'm happy to report a lot of our bridges are in good shape, but we're not, you know, in the deteriorating condition with a lot. So, we've started a couple things. We've done some initial looking at the Division Street over Williams River. To see what we can do for improvements on that bridge to preserve the lifespan, and I'm waiting for that report to come in. Herbert Road, they inspected, they being time bond inspected that at the same time. For us, so we'll see what the outcome of that is. And then the Pumpkin Hollow Road Bridge, which is the wooden bridge. There's never been any maintenance done, talking to the highway department on this. And wooden bridges kind of require stuff every year or two. So we're gonna evaluate that and kind of come up with a maintenance program for that this year. And, you know, put it on the docket for future years. But kind of bridges in a nutshell. If you have any questions on bridges. Moving on to roads. It's further down on your priority list. Like on Main Street, pedestrian safety being the 9 locations where we have to correct obstacle hazards and the 2 crosswalks that's been out to bid. Contract's been issued, it hasn't been executed yet. One little hold up with the contractor that we're gonna try to resolve tomorrow, but that's slated for construction this summer. And as you know, the gardens have been installed. We finished the first phase of our paving projects for this year. Getting Warren, Laurel, Ramsey, Commonwealth, Cooper, Stillwell, they're all done, we'll clean up up to date. The next focus that we hope to be out to bid in June, late June, early July is the Grove Street walk back to the Chestnut Ridge of this project. We will probably be part of the developer, I think I'm kidding. We'll see if this squeeze out.
Joe, I had a question before we go to page 2, just about the construction on pedestrian crosswalks. If we're talking summer, and obviously it's the heart of the traffic, is this something that can be done in a week, or are we talking 2 weeks, or is it wholesome? Like, how long is this project to do crosswalks?
There's 9 locations and 1 or 2 of them are pretty extensive.
But the 2 big ones that we
Two
were,
big ones,
yeah.
And then the crosswalk, you know,
The trip hazards and the crosswalks are sort of separate.
Yeah, I guess I was more focused on the rotary and the fuel, you know, on Main Street, the 2 big
The
crosswalks,
crosswalks.
yeah.
They're not a week job.
Yeah.
You're talking probably 6 weeks. I think we might have put 90 days in the contract.
So I guess I'm just worried about the summer, you know, do we really want to, you know, it would be great if we had it before the summer, but now I'm kind of wondering, do we want to wait till? So-
We hope to have a kickoff meeting with the contractor.
Mm-hmm. Do we get any kind of say if they want to start in the
I
heart
think
of?
so. I think so. I think we put some time frames in the documents.
Yeah.
So they don't go crazy on us. You know, sometimes with that, you're somewhat subject to equipment availability.
Yeah,
But we can still.
I'm just thinking Berkshire Busk, and you know, it's just, it could be mayhem if we're doing the crosswalks right in the
We'll
middle of
have
that.
those conversations.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a little question, maybe a little bit off subject, but not really? Will you guys have a chance at some point to take care of that culvert? I mean, we said you would take care of the culvert and what's the corner of Lake Mansfield Road and Castle Hill. This is the Cardella family, Cardella area. Remember you said you guys took a look at it and said they have to come out and have someone.
That's the top of Castle where you turn on the Lake Mansfield, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the one that I think we spoke of that was plugged up or something.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So we actually have a small sewer line to replace up there. And we're trying to get it done before July 1. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna explore that at that point to see exactly where the blockage is, hopefully replace.
Thank you.
Just going on the road on the next page, Lion Valley Road. From Route 7 to Muddy Brook Circle is on our agenda and included in the capital budget for this year. We're stumbling quantities right now to put an estimated cost on that. With hopes to be out to bid, in the July timeframe. It'd be ideal to get it done before school starts. I'm not sure we'll hit that. We'll target that. So last year, there was no money in the budget for crack sealing, which that is on our newer roads. We already took the rubberized asphalt in the joints to preserve our roads for a little bit longer. We entered into the first regional planning and the bids for that. So hopefully after July 1, we'll know that the bids are. And those are kind of the newer roads that we're going to update quite a bit better.
Okay, we have a question, so let me take it. I think this is another, can you just raise, Eileen, go ahead.
Okay, all right. You seem to be referring to page 2 and such. Do you have materials that we don't have? Because I don't have a page 2.
Right, it's a document about infrastructure. Chris, do you have that electronically? You don't have that electronically.
I think that I do.
Hold on. Well, yeah,
I'd like it. I'd like to follow along. It would be
I don't
nice.
blame you. I hadn't thought of that, but I think we can work on this.
I'll work on it. Go ahead.
Okay,
So crack sealing, hopefully, price is right, we'll do some of that to help, improve longevity of our roads. Over the past winter, I understand it's because of the town, they allowed it across country line, it comes down from Gorge Street, across East Street down to Humphrey. We're looking to do a little drainage work on East Street to correct that problem. I threw private roads on here to share with the board. We plow quite a few private roads, we provide with information on them. But we don't own them or we don't maintain them beyond that. So this past winter, we had thousands and thousands of dollars of damage on trucks because of the poor maintained road, potholes and things of that nature. So with Mark's help, we solicited input from town council, and the recommendation was that we go out and evaluate these roads and notify the residents of the improvements that need to be made. So we will continue to maintain them for the winter. So I'm sharing that with the board, that's the direction we're heading. Okay, because you're going to hear about it, I'm sure, because residents on the private road are going to have to spend some money.
Oh, interesting.
but that's consistent with our policy, which used to be that if someone came to us to ask us to maintain a private road, plow it, they would have to meet the standards.
Right.
So this is just the same thing, that they have to maintain those standards.
And I guess it hasn't been known for years.
Yeah.
So you must have a whole list of what people have a heads up
Right,
as
so
this coming up.
we'll inspect the roads, we'll come up with the list, we'll notify the residents on the street, but as long as there's no objection to the board, you know.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna hear about it.
Can I ask a question? I'm trying to understand how it happened in the street, which is up Nodville, I guess, right before you, as you obviously come to the top. They made that a one-way street. How did that happen? And what's the parameter? How does one make a street one way?
So that section of road, the residents actually own that road. They can do whatever they want with that. So initially, they reached out to us and had conversations, they wanted to dead end it. You know, of course, our emergency services departments don't really like that. There's not much we can do about it. They, you know, the residents that live on that road wanted to keep it open for pedestrian traffic, but the fear is as we close like Mansfield Road, that's gonna become quite an active road. Or could be if it's two-way, and they can't really, it's not wide enough for two-way traffic. So, they approached me about making it one-way. And again, we ran it by emergency services and everyone kind of liked that idea, so we helped to move forward with it.
And maybe just one more that might, I don't know if there's anything to do with you or not, or something has to be done elsewhere, but people probably know I work at Travis. And I see quite a few cars and they don't just goggle through, they cut through the parking lot to avert the rotary. Is that legal? Is something to be done about that or not? They don't just mosey.
They're going to the parking lot, Travis. is what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Absolutely. I see it all the time. And they move fairly quickly through there.
My suggestion still is that the owner of that building put a speed bumps in there and they won't be moving as fast.
Yeah.
But that's not an illegal procedure, if you would, to cut through.
It's private property.
I'm sorry.
It's private property. It's the problem. Yeah.
So it's showing, if you will, who owns it. It's a problem.
Mhm.
I'm just curious. I didn't know. Thank you.
Sidewalks, east of Lewis, we're completing that section on.
West. West.
Oh, what the? I have a wrong. West of Lewis, so we'll be completing that section, out West Street to, Maple Avenue. That we have, Chris and I recently received, estimate, from the engineer, and we'll be looking to put that off a bit in the next week. Moving on a rail trail was another sidewalk, basically sidewalk improvement that was slated to be. We received an estimate just the other day on that. So we just got our estimate by a little bit of money, I think. To make that work.
Joe, with that one, that's basically, we're just talking about like an airport mix or something get put down there.
Yeah, we'll verify that it will meet handicap accessibility.
Great.
And it'll just be entry from Cemetery to Main Street.
No, we'll
We'll go down to the solar fields.
we will.
Okay.
Just for the extent of property that we own. Okay. There's two items that different members of the select board have put on my radar. One is Front Street, and who's got it from South Street to South Way. I do have a check, I shared with Eric, to see if there's any activity that was done improvement committee. You know, wants to follow through, wants to have conversations with the landowner, because it's involved that and then be speaking out.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, I can attend one of your meetings when we talk about that.
Yeah.
If you want to do that. And the other one, is Auburn Road, from top of Castleton, sorry, Capitol Hill. We just, physical area, but be nice to complete that for people that want to walk up that way.
That's been on the radar a long time. It's a pretty expensive project.
It is, yeah.
And do you have to take some land from I mean, is it a whole thing?
And we have to lay it out for sure. So we got
Okay.
The gully on one side. and
Yeah.
On the other side. But,
The right of way is sizable.
Yeah.
Topography is
Yeah,
not favorable.
well, much like losing time, so, you know, 200 feet of sidewalk, we spend $1 million.
yeah, yeah.
We can't do.
Sure.
So, it's a quick on the wastewater treatment plant. You probably see a lot of activity happening on the pump station, we moved we got fairground out and South Main Street to do also. Some challenges underground structures, where they're supposed to be, things of that nature. We had a failure of the underground electrical service going into fairgrounds over the winter. We temporarily fixed it, so that's not really to replace this year with help the national grid, and depending what I used to say, we may go overhead, so the people buy us that utility, maintain that utility. We have tentatively, we got plans on Christian Hill to line the sewer line to help eliminate some infiltration that's happening there. And then we're gonna continue the inflow and infiltration study to help identify what trap water is. Town buildings, so we engaged Ty and Bond to begin an asset management program with us with funds that Chris secured through a grant, as well as some funds that were approved at town meeting. The plan would be to eventually do all of our town buildings, so when we have money to spend, we're spending it on the high priority and the right items. So the first buildings that were shooting the target was town hall, Great Barrington Fire Station, Rams Building, and the courthouse. For various reasons, they were picked. I know next year we have some money. We've got like 25, we have some money for now. All slated for windows and stuff like that. we'll have to make sure it's the right target.
I'm surprised to see that, oh, GB Fire Station Housatonic or
No.
this new one. What's wrong with that? Or
It's
Therese?
14 years old and not much has been done.
Oh,
So there's some catch up to do, and that's the reason why it's on the list. Let's get these items while they're smaller and not bigger. For example, Ramsdale, they've got the items that will leak in the gutters that could become a major problem. So for different reasons.
Yeah.
On your priority list, there was elevators, all the town elevators, which they will have been inspected, they're all working. We had quite a problem with Mason getting that back up and running, not really due to us, it's very difficult to work with the elevator inspections. Being out of Massachusetts, they won't talk to us, they won't talk to certified elevator companies, so it was rather difficult, something around this. A project that is on the books prior to me coming was an upgrade here. Also, that's something that's going to be worked on.
And that's tricky. I mean, at one point, it kept breaking down with out of council meetings. It obviously hasn't done that, but
Right.
when you go to replace it or repair it, whatever you do, it's gonna affect the ability to have meetings, so it's gonna have to work around the schedule and everything else. It just looks like a pain, but I know it needs to be done.
Yeah, okay. Courthouse, one of our assets, tenants, the carpet was a long-standing item over there, we're about 70% done with it. And we've upgraded all the lighting, as well as, quite a bit of improvements over there. And hopefully we'll keep it there. Town hall campus. We have a preliminary set of plans, and I don't know if this will trigger something like that.
Board members have seen the plans,
Okay.
but they're aware that there are other boards and committees that also need to see them. And then come back to this board. At some point.
Mason Library, we have, in last year's budget, we have one HVAC unit that is being replaced. We're working on a temporary AC post over there, because the other unit is not a big operated. There's an issue with the control. And then at Mason, we have a whole bunch of spare projects. That's all that I think we'd like to talk about on the end of that. Ramsdale, activity there. We have the oil replacement under contract and it's slated to start around the end of June. It was complicated a little bit, I still have thoughts. And we're dealing with that too. The sewer line will be replaced prior to the handicap accessibility project. Great Barrington Police Department, there is no air conditioning. The air conditioning is not in that building either. Last year we were in the air conditioners, so we will be this summer as well as the rentals and stuff, but in the dispatch area. So we have money in FY24 to correct that. So there's no way we're going to get time for the heating and cooling season. Senior Center and the community center. Just to share some thoughts with you guys, we put a generator in the senior center for the backup power. The community center is actually wired for a generator. So in the time of an emergency, we could have heating and cooling shelter, very functional there. Maybe as time goes on, we could have a way of making them, backup shelters, and then maybe even, emergency shelters for disasters or something like that. Mark and I talked about it, we have the schools, I think is our only thing.
yeah, it's great.
So, commercial kitchens, maybe in the future, things of that nature. Commercial kitchens, senior center will serve a different purpose.
Yeah, we've been talking about that for a few years, so it would be great.
So I'll keep backing away at that. If we want to turn up the heat on it, you want to change it on your priority list or add it to it, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the commercial kitchen, because I think they deserve that there.
Yeah.
And I wonder what grants are out there if it becomes an emergency center, if we declare it one that we haven't looked at, because it isn't that way now.
Yeah, we priced it out last year, and I think we were in the $50,000 range between refrigeration stoves and hoods and stuff like that. Parks, just a quick on that, Memorial Field, we have a set of plans in here, final review, and then we'll go to bid in July, August timeframe for construction this fall. As part of that, Olympia Metals and softball field, we re-energized that for a facelift down there, get it back up to speed, we can feel good stuff. And maybe even a couple of new dugouts there, so we may include that as an alternate for the Memorial Field bid. Do it at the same time.
You did the soccer field.
I'm sorry,
You did the soccer field down there.
the soccer field's in down there at Olympia Meadows, and we actually put some new lighting up there, and it's all set on timers and key holder boxes, to turn them on and off.
Oh, you can play at night at this,
Or into dark, yeah, it's
Oh,
not,
that's good. Okay.
it's not like lighting around the whole perimeter,
Okay.
but it's enough to probably play soccer until twilight.
There's been lights down there that were put up originally by the football people, so in the fall that they could practice longer.
Oh, that's great.
So this is just an extension, not this, but it's an extension on that, which is great.
Yep, we, Parks Department had some money, so we actually changed the lights, we put LED lights in there, there was a good rebate on them. So that's up and functioning in the Parks Department, you know, versus spending a lot of money on soccer, we wanted to do a trial, so we put a couple of nets down there, and see what kind of attendance it gets. And then go from there in the future.
So it hasn't started yet, or hasn't, people haven't used it?
It's there, it's lined, I'm not sure if anyone's trying there.
Okay.
As of the last Parks meeting, so.
How do we publicize that, or can we let people know if there's nets down, or, you know?
We'll have to go through the parks on that. I think we're still kind of making sure everything's in place and, but yeah, we definitely should.
What we did is, with the community center usage increasing, we were running into conflicts of schedule. So there is, who's kind of community center schedule and a shared use field schedule up on the website. And people can apply to the Parks Commission for use of those. But this way here, we can schedule it out so people can see. Organizations that are using this. So yeah, we money to provide a.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit of challenge, but everyone's participating and all the schedule that makes it useful. I think the last on the parks is doing and grow. The Parks Commission, from the time that I started, there was a public survey going on, there's an info on the parks, which isn't on the website. And then the Parks Commission recently held an informational session, an informational gathering session of what people wanted to see at the meeting. We have some money already in place with the consultant that they could do some feasibility and like sketches on what they heard. We'll discuss it. Hopefully we can move forward with something there.
The park that's near West Street, East Street, near the hospital. So,
South Street Park.
yeah, thank you. Here's one of the
You were close.
directions. How is that, does that get used, or I just wonder? is
But
there
we've had
just
trouble
a
with
bad
that.
Spot.
We put adult fitness equipment in there a few years ago. That didn't work out. No, it doesn't get as used as much as we would like.
There's something we could, I mean, I think that's a great idea, like adult equipment. So if that didn't work, so I'm just thinking, is there something else that we're missing that we could utilize that? But I guess that's the first.
Yeah.
Probably working on that.
Yeah, I have a couple of things to say, and first of all, I challenge any town of 7,000 to have a list like this in 1 year.
Yes,
And your department, not just you, but you don't like to take credit anyways. I don't know how you keep up with all this.
Yeah,
And-
it's hard.
Yeah. This is. We fell behind on some things and there were good reasons. We're catching up on a lot of things. And I know I work with you on the parks and the cemetery. And that in itself is a job, you know. And then you have all the roads and it just, it amazes me if people look at that. And also I give credit to the townspeople who at every town meeting approves these projects so that we can continue to move ahead. There's very few hesitations on any of the infrastructure projects. And we get grants where we can, which is quite a lot. But we we don't just wait for grants. If they're not available, we ask the town. And the citizens have been very positive, but your department has been amazing because what's not on here is all your routine day-to-day activity.
Right.
I mean, whether it's wintertime plowing,
This is
summertime,
all above daily activities.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, and, they're rising to the occasion, you know,
Yeah.
they work well with each other, between departments, they share people, they share equipment, it's going well.
yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And, you know, you get the phone calls, you know, they miss a cemetery and for 2 days and people expect it to be done. And for the most, 100% it is done. It's just amazing. Plus you have all these projects. Plus this year we added Main Street, you know, the gardening there, and that looks terrific. So I don't usually say too much about those things, but it is amazing. You know, I looked at this list and it's putting everything in one list, and it just is amazing what's going on in this town for repair projects, infrastructure. And it's a testament to your department.
Yeah.
And your leadership.
Yeah, I think
On behalf of the department and entirely, I appreciate that. They're really stepping up to the plate, they're really enjoying it, enjoying the compliments. You know, there's a lot of good things happening, and none of it would be possible without the support of the taxpayers.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we're actually contemplating and working on trying to figure a way to get into liquid de-icing for the winter.
Mm.
You know, that you see on the state, so we can hit the main roads, the roads to the hospital, so as it starts snowing, if the temperature changes, we're still okay. So, you know, I think the last couple of storms in the year, we made some great changes, and, you know, things went better, and there's a curve done.
Mm.
You know, we've even taken on a lot of training. I mean, I can't tell you the number of hours of training we've done since in a year. And in the year, keep our workers safe, happy, and going home to the families.
And what we don't see on top of all this is none of these projects go the way it's planned. We know that. There's all kinds of curves in every one of these projects. They're not simple, even when you get them out to bid so it's, yeah, this is pretty amazing, actually.
Ask a question, it may not be of Joe, and it just made me think of it, and we may already have it. And I'm just not aware of it. Do we have a heating area and a cooling area for people to come if it's wicked hot? Do we have a place for people to go, or when it's wicked cold, do we have a place for people to go?
Well, I think Joe mentioned the senior center as a possibility, and he queried whether we want to put this on the priority list, which I think is an awesome
I think we should.
suggestion. So
Yeah, I would say that.
we have that at the schools.
Yeah, the schools,
Right.
but now they're emergency shelters, they're generators, but they're not necessarily set up for heating and cooling. They could be, but I don't think they've ever been asked. But I think putting the use of those two buildings for emergency shelters is a good high priority topic. that no one addressed. I think that's smart
Yeah.
because there are times in the summertime where we see other towns declare emergencies because of the heat, and we don't have the building to do that. I mean, the police station in the wintertime is so cold, we could use it, if it could keep all that cold in for the summertime, but it's, yeah, so I think that's a good priority to add to it as part of your projects. And like I say, maybe I'm wrong, but I hope that would open us up to some grants too that would help pay for it. Yeah.
You would think that
Yeah.
would- for heating, cooling.
We're changing the generator at the police station as part of a couple years ago budget, it's scheduled for later this year, the generator is ordered. We changed the bid document to keep the generator, or maybe we can do some minor repairs to keep it as a backup to bring to this town if we ever need to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Plug it in. So
Nice,
trying to plan that.
excellent.
So we've done we will add that to it because I saw no objections. We've done the Main Street pedestrian safety and traffic, that was on there. So the trip hazards we've done, we'll check those off. We talked about them. Let's go to the Monument Mountain entrance.
Okay, so Mass DOT completed the build out of the buffered right turning lane last year at some point. This improved visibility for cars exiting the campus. And more recently, since we met in January, Mass DOT contractors also installed the intersection conflict warning system at that location. So I highlighted this in green, as you can see on your priority list, only because no additional work is expected at that location at this time.
So I think, the buffer is really did, it's a million times better. So I think that was a great thing. This intersection conflict warning system, having a child there and you go there a lot. Oh my goodness,
Good timing.
that's my daughter. No. Sorry. I would be curious if Mass DOT has asked us for our opinion, whether it actually is helping, because I personally don't think it is helping. I find it extremely confusing. I don't know what all these flashing lights are doing. I think it's made it worse. And I'm sorry to say that, because I'm sure it's cost a lot of money for the taxpayers through the state, but I don't know. I would love to give them feedback and maybe help another town that unfortunately would get this, because I think it's a waste.
So I think the answer is that they have been in touch with the school. They're really having this on the town priority list was a good idea, but it really isn't the town priority.
Yeah.
School owns the property.
Yeah.
I've talked to Peter Dillon about at least putting arrows down on the exits and entrances, because there are 4 now. And after the town meeting, everyone left out the wrong one.
Right.
They left out of an entrance. The police were there directing traffic. They weren't gonna say anything because it's very confusing. So at least putting arrows down, I assume he's waiting till after school's out, or maybe it's going to the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee for their input. I don't disagree with you, Lee. Now I know why there's not another one in the state.
I haven't seen it. I mean, I just feel like I need instructions. I mean, I literally don't know what all these, is it like faster means you go, or slower means I literally.
I figured out if it's red and faster, that's not good.
I honestly don't know
But
what.
the problem is it's a distraction. It's that, you're trying to look for other vehicles coming. If you've driven as long as some of us have, you're not a new driver, you gotta look for
But what does
vehicles,
it mean?
but now you got the red flashing light telling you there's a vehicle coming.
I-
But while you look at that, you're taking your eye off the road. So it is a little, and I'm open to new things. I'm not like, I don't like new things, but that's still open to this for discussion. I think, yeah, it is, we'll see it, maybe it helps for new drivers. Maybe it's better for new drivers who actually have to say, oh, there must be a car coming, but for us who've gone out of that exit 1,000 times, it is a little confusing.
I've never seen the flashing.
Is it
I've only
worth
seen
asking
flashing
the
lights.
school board, is it how it's working?
Well, we can ask the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee about that. I can do that.
Yes, please.
Well, I think this comes off our list for now because it's what we wanted to be done, or what they suggested was done. Lee's right. The right-hand lane going into the school is terrific. So as confusing as the other is, the right-hand lane is really good, and I appreciate that they did that. But the rest of it is a little bit confusing, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who noticed that everyone was going out the wrong side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only going one way.
We'll move that to the completed list.
Yeah, I've moved that to complete it. And I'll bring it to the Buildings and Grounds. Yeah, move on to public safety.
So this was a new priority that we added back in January. And it's a result of conversations that took place during the most recent budget season, so planning for fiscal 24. And I did take advantage of Chief Berger's institutional knowledge before he left. I wanted to capture that 10 years of information on the needs, future needs, and his opinions on what we need for staffing in the coming years. I also spoke with with Chief Story and requested data from his department. So conversations will resume when our new fire chief is in place. With both of the chiefs. And my goal is to have a draft plan and the supporting data together in time for the continued conversation during our fiscal 25 budget season.
The next one's the Ramsdale Library, which we've discussed. That will come off, I hope by our next meeting. It should be done this summer. Reed cleaners, always an interesting topic. Much more complicated than people realize.
It is ring cleaners, EPA was, so we have a very large cleanup remediation grant from EPA, but in fact, before we could even start work on cleanup, we needed additional funds to focus the cleanup activities. So they're actually going to start either later this month or early July. More well drilling, more groundwater testing, more soil testing to try to determine the exact extent of soil removal operations that are needed. So those activities will take through the summer. So we'll call those not assessment, but focusing of the projected cleanup activities. Then actual cleanup can take place, and then we can figure out what to do with the building. So we're a long ways away. You know, we talked about Cook's Garage earlier tonight. That's ready for the boards to make some decisions about. Green Cleaners is not there yet. There's still a lot of work to do. We did complete the property survey, that's in place. EPA's contractors are ready. I don't have their schedule yet, but as I said, it should be later this month or early July. And then hopefully later this year, we can start the actual cleanup activities that it is. So we're in close cooperation with all the property owners there. The property owner of the bank at the corner of Rossiter and Maine, and all the adjacent properties are. They've all been really cooperative, you know, we do indoor air testing to all those properties and we access the properties. So it's really great. Everybody's been very patient. But you're right, Steve, very complicated.
Could you refresh our memories how long we expect the cleanup to take?
It depends on how much we find in this pre-cleanup investigation. So I don't have.
Yeah, because I remember you gave us some sort of timeline, but I don't know, maybe it's, I guess we threw it out. Okay.
Burn that.
All right.
Thank you, Chris. Short-term rental compliance.
So our short-term rental compliance registration program is now up and running, as you know. We've mailed letters out to every STR host currently advertising rentals for periods of less than 30 days, and that was across all platforms. We found about 150 advertisements back in March. I suspect there are more now. A second letter is being drafted now and prepped for mailing to send out basically a second notice to anyone that hasn't registered as of today. If after 2 letters, we find that hosts are still not in compliance with the bylaw, we'll start to issue some fines, but that will be, of course, with plenty of notice to hosts before we get to that point. So as of today, there are 59 short-term rentals registered. We've collected about we've collected $11,800 in fees. And we receive a report from GovOS, which is our short-term rental compliance monitoring company, every month. So we capture any new short-term rentals that come on the market over that previous month, and then we start the process of notifying them at step 1, and then follow-up letter. So we have a good plan in place now, we have a good team in place. It's been a bit of a slow process, but we're getting there. We're also improving the registration process based on feedback we received from people who may have a problem uploading a document or just need some assistance. So every time we receive feedback, we take a second look at the program and see if there's any way we can improve it and make it easier for people to register. I think we're getting there.
Did we hear back from the AG's office about the tenant?
No, we won't until mid-August.
They still have time. And so people, so people realize that that hasn't started, like you still can't.
I don't know if
have
the
tenants.
average resident would understand that yet, but we are monitoring registrations to make sure that tenants aren't registering rented properties right now. Each application that hits our registration portal is individually reviewed by a staff member. They're not automatically approved.
Sure.
Yeah, will we start getting the reports for the 3% tax that got added to that to go towards
Yeah,
affordable housing?
Last I knew, we collected only around $2,200 or something like that, but we can get you a report on a more up-to-date
Yeah,
report.
and that's
probably-
all in the hands of the state, correct? It's none of our staff
That
time.
comes through DOR to the town,
Yeah.
right? Just like any other rooms and meals
Mhm, okay.
taxable. So that's all I have on short-term rentals.
Website and URL for email.
Can I ask on the short-term rentals, the short-term rental compliance with the planning board? Noted there in response to the department, and I'm not sure if that's something you want to talk to the planning board about at a future joint meeting, or if that's something.
No, I think the planning board has made it clear that that's not their responsibility.
It hasn't been the.
It hasn't been there, so I think that you're absolutely right, Chris, I should come off. Yeah, I don't think they would be upset at that at all.
We can look at that. That's an old reference.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
good point.
Website and URL. Move on to that.
Yeah,
So, as you all know, voters at town meeting approved Article 21 that authorized just over $30,000 in funding to proceed with a website overhaul. So we're in the process of getting that started now. We have a contract in place to begin that work in fiscal 24 with Civic Plus. We just need to wait for the funds to become available on July 1st. So we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now. But the contract, like I said, is signed and in place, so we're ready to roll in the new fiscal year. And Civic Plus is a local government web developer that we are currently working with, and it's used by a number of Massachusetts cities and towns. So,
You said they have various like templates they'll be able to.
yeah,
Do you know when we'll be able to like start looking at that?
I think what I'll do is have, I'll send you some cities and towns that are currently using the version of their product that we will be moving forward.
Okay.
So that you can kind of see what's available. And we can talk about, you know, a color scheme and a layout that works for us. Yeah. So we'll get started on that in July, once we enter the new fiscal year. Everything's in place. Oh, just wanted to also mention the URL for email addresses. That has been reserved, our .gov name. So our new email addresses, once we get there, will end in townofgbma.gov. And it should be a seamless transition. We'll do all that behind the scenes, but that's coming too, along with the new website.
So moderate priority, we usually don't go through each one of those. But is there any questions on the moderate priority or before we start talking about other things?
I was curious about the economic development line item. Just, it says essentially that it's on hold, but I'm kind of curious what the history was with it and what we have in place and what it might look like in the future.
So it's on hold.
That we're essentially prioritizing other things, right?
Because it's yellow, is that what you're saying?
No, the focus has been on housing and transportation required to support economic, I read that as in we're focusing on these things first because they lead to this more, or is that not the case?
No, I think that's correct.
Yeah, I think we look at affordable housing, workforce housing, transportation as fundamentals for economic development, small business systems and job creation. So yeah, I think that's how we have been addressing the economic development line, is through those initiatives. So we talked about housing, transportation has been the microtransit program, which has taken the senior transportation program and enhanced it to longer hours and to weekends. So we've doubled the ridership, I think, on a daily basis. We're doing workforce rides in the mornings, evenings, weekends. So I think we're on track to have a really solid program there and meet some of those basic needs for some of our businesses. We've had some recent discussions with small businesses based in Great Barrington who want to expand in Great Barrington, looking to acquire a space in Great Barrington, expand their workforce. So we are always in active discussion with the State's Office of Small Business Development, working on things like making sure people know about the PACE program, which is the clean energy program, so people have the resources, capital to upgrade the buildings that they purchase, and that they have access to tax financing agreements, whether it's real estate agreements with the town, actually for the town meeting, or with the state's Department of Labor. So we're pretty active there, and we continue work with the Downtown Cultural District Committee. We're going to launch some downtown tours this fall or this summer, and do things like that to keep the focus on downtown, addressing vacant storefronts that we can.
So the focus is mostly on downtown rather than any sort of on the outer edges or.
The cultural district's focus is, but all of these other things that I mentioned, those are townwide. Yep.
Just the laundromat can come off. I don't know if it's anything to ourselves, but we have a laundromat. So, whether it is or isn't, good job. Anything else on that?
I was just wondering, our master plan review, are we still keeping that as moderate, or are we gonna pump that up eventually, or do we have a sense of when we're gonna really delve into that? Or,
I think Steve and the planning board chair have been talking about setting a joint meeting to discuss this.
I think it's our next meeting.
It might be.
Yeah, I think it's our next meeting.
let's talk about it.
June 26th.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
So that'd be a good topic for
Yeah.
that, you know, priorities, open space plan, master plan update.
Can I ask about how the outreach we're doing for Code Red? Just saying it that I didn't have about reaching out to larger businesses in the area. Is that the current strategy of getting the word out on the program, just going through employers, or is that what that means? Is that-
I'm sorry, you lost me on that.
Sorry. Let me find the code.
It's down in the completed project.
Oh, sorry, I jumped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah, that was a pre-COVID outreach effort that we did to try to encourage larger employers in town to get their employees enrolled in our reverse 911 system.
Right.
So we had a senior worker at that time who was, you know, reaching out to the schools and the hospital and again, some of our larger employers. I think it was pretty effective at that time. And probably something we should revisit again. That's.
I'm just kind of bringing it up because I'm curious, just, do we have any numbers on how many people have enrolled townwide?
I don't know them off the top of my head, but we could certainly get those numbers, yeah.
Because I know just as far as, you know, being at this time Waterworks customer, when there have been issues with the system, we get the alerts. Through Code Red, it's been super helpful. You know, I signed up for it since I moved to my house. But you go online and you see some people who are like, why didn't anyone tell me? So I just think there's still some outreach to be done on that program that I don't know.
We've done some marketing campaigns periodically just to remind people that there's a banner, I don't know, if you saw it right on the front of town hall. We have to sometimes put those up in front of the police department, or fire department. And we try to make it as easy as possible for folks. We have a Code Red link right on our homepage. If anyone has a difficult time registering, we'll also walk them through it and do that for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably a good idea. We might want to revisit another effort to bring attention to.
Especially the events of last week and just kind of.
That's on your end, Steve.
We're in trouble when it's online.
That's the TV.
Yes.
I think
So the joint meeting is July 24th, at 5:30, joint meeting with the planning board. So it's Monday, July 24th.
Okay. July 20.
Yeah. Anything else under the moderate?
Yeah, select board policy.
Yeah, we haven't worked on those in a while because there's been too many things else going on, but I've asked Mark to come back to us at some point with executive summary of some suggestions.
Yeah, you'll see in the comment section, I did include there, it should be reviewed and updated in 2023. That's a
I
new
didn't see
comment.
that.
Yeah, there's some things about public comment, some new rulings from the state Supreme Court that need to be incorporated into our policies.
I have a question about marketing to young families. Just, I know that launched at the end of 2021. Just curious how it's gone. Do we have a big idea of how many people have actually come taking advantage of it?
No,
No.
I don't have any update to share with you tonight on that. There was a private group in town that was taking the lead on that.
Yeah, I think that was Economic Development Committee. So before your time, we had an Economic Development Committee and Steve Puccini was the chair, I was the vice chair. And so that was part of the focus. And even before that, Steve Puccini had a group on the side. So that kind of, disbanded and so there's nothing
Yeah,
really.
but there's another group that I think took over from there, and they focus, I think, is now it's turned to workforce affordable housing, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure they're working on this as much.
Okay.
Yeah,
One of the things we did as a community is we created a new residents tab on our website.
Right.
Just to share resources for any folks that would be located.
So that's kind of the extent of it right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
May I
Okay.
jump in here? I would like the boards, I know you're probably gonna take input from residents here soon, but I wanted to just suggest that you consider as a board, including the topic of employee recruitments and retentions. That's something that we're struggling with right now, as you all know. It is very time consuming. And I think that I need to spend more time working on that. So I would like you to consider including that in this round.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, because we actually talked about this. I mean, knowing through the school district and the town, that's kind of like the number one priority is trying to maintain, it's hiring plus maintaining retention. You don't retain, you're falling behind anyways. So I would love to see us, no one disagrees, to put that under high priority and probably a number one on there, because we're just gonna fall so far behind.
Yeah.
And if it's, has to do with salary, does it have to do with workforce housing, what's it have to do with, and how do we retain, and how do we hire new employees?
On that, how do we collect feedback from town employees? Like, do they do an annual or a quarterly kind of review to, about how they feel about the positions and what's going well, what's not, that kind of thing?
No, we don't collect that information. I do performance evaluations, which gives me an opportunity to talk to department heads and get feedback from them at that time. And then what department heads do is they go back and do the same with their employees. So we are in a roundabout way collecting information from our employees.
Departments usually have regularly scheduled one-on-ones with the town manager too. And that is frequently a topic of conversation. So there's always that feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we do exit interviews for most positions, just to, again, collect that. Unfortunately, it's usually too late at that point, but
Right, that's kind of what I was thinking. I know we do the exit interviews. I'm just wondering if we have a structure in place to kind of get that feedback before they get to the point where they're doing the exit
Yeah,
interviews.
As part of the town manager evaluations, we have a section that asks about the employee's relationship with the town manager, and we've provided a spot that we can get comments. So we have the ability as a select board to talk to staff
We do.
in relation, in
Okay.
relation to when we're doing
Is
an
that-
evaluation for the
I guess
town
it's like
manager.
formalized in any way?
Yeah,
or-
That's
okay.
actually on the form, yeah.
Okay.
So that'll come up during
Okay.
the town manager's evaluation.
yeah, I don't think we're unique in any way. This is obviously something every city and town is struggling with, any employer really, but it's something that I need to spend more time on in the next 6 months. And so I think it's important to make it one of our highest priorities.
Anyone else?
I got
Yeah.
a few things
Yeah, go ahead.
that I would like to discuss. After just a lot of review and watching like some of our traffic conditions and speeding. I work in Stockbridge quite a bit, and I see on like Elm Street and I think it's Park Street, a few other things that they put in temporary speed bumps for the season. And I was curious if that's something that we can look into on certain roads, just to name a few, like the East Street, Gilmore Ave, zone. Just because of, A, getting feedback from that neighborhood, and B, working there and just watching people race down those roads to try to cut off all the traffic that's going through town. I have no idea what that entails, getting
Yeah,
those
I'm not
installed,
sure
but
speed bumps are effective, so what I would like to see us do is maybe talk to the police chief and see if he has some recommendations.
Mhm.
I know Stockbridge had speed bumps at a couple places and they had to remove them because they're not legal.
they're
So,
back, because I've been taking pictures of them, just because it appears to slow them down, because there was a spell in the spring where just not sitting on Elm Street at the market, you see people racing by, and now they have them in there, and it does seem to be effective,
yeah, so
so.
let's look at. what we
Yeah,
can
and
do
it's
with
something
that.
I would like to have us look into. I'm not calling it necessarily a high priority, but maybe a moderate or something, some sort of traffic.
Speed calming, well, let's call it
Speed.
speed calming.
Yeah, yeah. So that was one. The other thing I had on my list, and then I noticed the thing from the Board of Health.
Right, we're gonna do that next.
We are, okay. And then I was just thinking this on my way this morning, I see, and Joe mentioned all the sewer pump plants and, or, the stations what they're redoing, and there's a spot that got cleared by the, rising pond coming out of Housatonic. I was just wondering what the chances would be, or if we can look into like a canoe launch area there, because I know it's like an access point.
Do we own that?
And now it's cleared out. I think we took, over it to get this fixed, or we did an easement on it or something.
Oh, no.
Just something I thought.
Let's talk about it.
there.
Let's not put it on the list, but let's
Yeah.
talk about
And then, with the WDM, and I've talked with Chris a little bit about this and, whatnot, but at some point, it would be really nice to have a power option at the Housatonic Park, and, whether it's entangled or involved with the upgrade to the Housatonic School, or after this past weekend, I came up with a couple ideas that it would be nice to, if there was other situations there that need power or just holiday lights.
it. Why don't you
have
bring
some
this to
sort of
the
thing.
parks? That's really not ours.
Okay,
Let's go to the
sounds
park for
good.
that one. I'll help you with that.
Then, yeah, that's what I have.
Let's talk about, if I can find it. If you wanna, well, Rebecca's on, so let's have Rebecca. Talk about the proposal, priority proposal from the Board of Health. Do you have this electronically?
Sorry, I don't think I do.
Okay,
It was, I believe it was just the packet for tonight.
okay, so it's in the packet. Someone online wants to look at it.
Okay, so I can promote Rebecca as an analyst if she is.
Rebecca, do you want to make a presentation and discuss this a little bit?
Yes, I do. You are looking at the letter that the Board of Health approved at their last meeting, June 1st. And for anyone that's in attendance, I can get you a copy if you just email me tomorrow. But I think it is part of the agenda packet too that was posted. But I'm here on behalf of the Board of Health to request that you consider adding a sustainable waste management to the priority list. So the Board of Health spent some time discussing increasing options for waste management offered to residents. But then it became apparent that the Board of Health could do more if they worked collaboratively with the Select Board, the town, along with DPW, as opposed to just working autonomously as the Board of Health. So some of the projects that they discussed and are working on is a pilot composting program for the transfer station. Excitingly, we've received a proposal for this composting program from Berkshire Composting, which, if you don't know, is a Great Barrington based composting company. And late last week, I received an award letter from the Public Health Alliance saying that we received funding to get this program up and running. So hopefully the last leg of approval from the select board could happen. But then the other thing that the Board of Health wants to start working on is going after funding from DEP. It's SMRP funding, which stands for Sustainable Materials Recovery Program. So the way that this funding works through DEP is it's based on a scoring system. So the more sustainable initiatives or programs a town has in place, the more funding the town qualifies for. So the process for that is to just complete a survey to see what we are offering as a town. And then, apply for the funding, but then also have a buy recycled materials policy in place, which would be the number one task on this priority list is, or this initiative is to get this town policy in place. So for just clarification, I would plan on being the coordinator of this priority, so it wouldn't fall on DPW or the town manager. This would be propelled by the Board of Health and thus the Health Department. But then lastly, I'm just going to read from the letter that they submitted to you. And this is coming from the Board of Health, that we ask that you prioritize sustainable waste management so that all of us as elected officials can do our best to prevent further detriment to the environment, promote sustainable practices, and accomplish some of the projects that I've just outlined, and most importantly, protect future generations of our town.
Anyone have any questions or anyone object to adding sustainable waste management as a high priority?
Seems like a good goal to have.
Yeah, I'm getting all nods of the heads. They haven't been voting, so yes, let's add that to it. Yes, everyone agrees. Ruby, go right ahead, hold on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ruby.
Can you see me or hear me?
I can hear you.
As you can see that the town of Great Barrington, we are kind of lagging behind as far as recycling initiatives compared to Sheffield or Egremont. And so to catch up on that, I would like to make sure that our town has a priority to attempt to do our best to use Mass DEP funding, which we have plenty of at this point, to start this initiative. I think it would bring the town to a better standing compared to other towns in the area.
Thank you, Ruby, and we are going to add it to our high priority list.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Anyone have anything else before we go to citizens speak?
Yeah, I just have a couple of things here. One is, I don't know if we can do this for next year or not, but we have talked about it in honoring our fallen soldiers and people that are in service now for next year's Memorial Day. That seem to even have that in Monterey and other smaller towns. We should be.
I'm not sure what you're asking. Just sorry.
The flags or the pictures that you see on the electrical poles or whatever, utility poles that have pictures.
With pictures. Oh,
right.
Okay.
And I know they have that in Monterey. They have this little section with that. I think we should be able to do that for next year.
Just, I've been working with Mike Casey out of the Housatonic VFW, and he's trying to gather pictures and participation for that section, and then we should reach out to the Great Barrington VFW for the same. But some of that information from seems to be hard to come by, guys wanting the recognition and stuff, but But Mike Casey's been working on it, and I believe he was talking with people out of Great Barrington as well, just to give us something to start with. And I was thinking, it's hard, maybe just a handful a year or something and let it grow, so.
And the other thing I had was, and I only have some of the information, I just heard it today, so I maybe don't have all the details. But I understand that I think there's a place called, is it Off the Shelf Farm? That may have, and what I'm hearing, and don't quote me, is it may have impinged upon the Indian burial grounds that are there, and we're wondering.
We can find out about it. It's not gonna be on our priority list, but we can find out about it.
Right, well, I don't mind if it's not on there, but I think it's worth looking at, and it's worth preserving if that's the case. Since this town, very Native
no, I
American
agree.
oriented, South in the
I agree.
country, it's important, and we don't want bad juju either.
Anything else for the priority list? Go ahead, Ben.
Two things I wanted to ask about. Childcare. I don't know how we kind of discussed it, or if there's been any sort of what policies that we currently have in place. Is that just, is there a committee in place, or?
We've talked about it there. We haven't figured out what the role of the town would be.
Yeah,
That's the real problem, is what the role of town government is in childcare. When Kate was here, it was discussed, and I'm not sure what the role of the town is.
yeah, and I appreciate that. I guess if we put it on this list, are we ensuring that we're having the conversation?
No, we're ensuring the town staff. My concern is we're ensuring the town staff isn't doing something else.
Mhm.
Whether it's Housatonic Water, or they're putting, maybe we put it up, compromise and put it under moderate priority. But I would love to know what other towns are doing before we add it to the list.
I mean, I guess my question is like, putting it as a moderate priority, just to kind of start gathering that information at the very least, so we can start getting a plan in place and have it, because I do think it ties directly to some of our top priorities. It ties to affordable housing.
It does.
And so I think just making sure that we're keeping it part of the conversation, I do think.
I have no problem with that. I say when else shaking their head, so as long as it's moderate, so we're not taking away from other projects. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the other thing I was curious about, town meeting and talking about ways to possibly make it more accessible to more people, because I know, what was the final percentage that came to the last town meeting? Roughly 5%.
I don't know the percentage. I think we had 280 attendees.
Yeah, let's bring Michael Wise in.
Okay.
And talk to him.
Yeah.
Because it's really his meeting.
Okay,
So let's bring Michael in and see what he says. I don't think we need to put on the list. Let's just bring him in.
great.
I think that's a good idea. Hopefully he has better ideas than I have, because I haven't figured out one.
I know, again, I think it's just a conversation to have, but I heard from so many people about, making that Monday night meeting, again, for childcare or for work or whatever, it's just.
Yeah. And maybe they're, we looked at, it's not legal to do electronic.
Yeah.
And it's not practical. So, yeah, no, I think it's a good idea.
I'm sorry, when you say electronic, you mean like a hybrid?
You can't do.
You can't do it
you cannot
hybrid?
do that. No.
Could be-
Nice if we
Could be
encourage-
pizza and ice cream.
Like a scheduled lunch break.
Well, yeah. I mean, what interestingly, so when we did have it during the COVID era, not that it stopped, but when we had outside, people had the lawn chairs and it kind of a little bit social. So that,
Right.
I don't know what the attendance was there, but I seem to think that there were more people when it was really nice out. So if we
Yeah.
had, not that we want to make it a party, but maybe if we were to offer something, I know the childcare is not working at all though.
Yeah,
So I know that
that's
was,
important.
unfortunately, that didn't.
Yeah,
bring
we've
any-
offered, see, the problem with
Yeah,
childcare, we
so-
offer, maybe we
yeah.
don't publicize enough, maybe we do.
Yeah.
But the problem is, meeting starts at 6. And by 8 o'clock, time to bring the kids home.
Right.
We're still, I mean, one of the things I think we can look at with Michael, because it's his meeting, is how long what's the advantage of letting the meeting go 3 hours,
Yeah.
continuing it another night?
Yeah.
As opposed to going 4.5, 5 hours. We lost a lot of people at the last meeting, but there's no guarantees that someone's gonna show up the second night. So, but I think those are things to talk about. I was all in favor of 9 o'clock and saying, let's do go to the Thursday night, and I was in the minority of that one. So.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know, is it possible that we can ask or put out a list of things, there's a lot, I don't know if I was speaking to you or not, but there's a lot of things I think that people, if they come to these sessions, can be answered before they come to town hall and get up 4 or 5 or 6 times and waste everyone else's time. Maybe there's a list, these are the type of questions you bring to the meeting or town hall, these are things that we can discuss at these meetings.
Well, you know, we tried the baby town meeting, for lack of a better term, and for the first couple of years, it wasn't bad. But after that, it was town staff, the select board and the finance committee. And that was useless. I mean, we all knew what was on there. We had very poor attendance. We had some people come, but the people who came were well prepared. They weren't the people we were trying to get there. They're very smart people who had done their homework and the people who were trying to get there. And ultimately, whatever we do, we can't stop people from asking questions at town meeting, but we can try to prepare them better.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. And I was all gung ho for the meeting the week before. I don't remember if we called it the mini town meeting or whatever. And at times it worked, but other times it faded out at the end.
Well, sometimes things are worth trying again.
No,
I don't know if this is one of them, but there are things.
I'm not against
things
that.
can't be
Yeah.
done.
I mean, I think after that long, last town meeting, we were talking about like limiting it to 3 hours. And so people know, that they're not going to be there, held hostage for, 6 hours. So if we had something in place, we didn't know if that was through, it wasn't a bylaw, but if we actually had something structured.
Well-
And it was just talking, but just so people didn't know what to expect when they go there. So, okay, I'm going to be here 3 hours if it's, and then, go to day 2.
And know it's Monday and Thursday. So
Yeah,
just prepare both. And I was all in favor of that. And to be quite honest, probably most of us went to work the next day and that wasn't the most fun experience after being out
Yeah.
so late and seeing, I think it was about 140 people left at the end, 150,
Yeah.
deciding on things that is just such a small percentage. Yeah, let's bring Michael in and let's do it now. And I mean, now fall maybe and really talk about it.
Yeah.
So, and we're gonna have it, well, maybe a little sooner. We're probably gonna have a special town meeting in October. And so let's see if we can talk to Michael, maybe some warrant articles sponsored by the select board about length of meetings and et cetera.
Yeah.
So, but let's see what he has to say. It's his meeting as
Yeah.
well as the townspeople.
Yeah, and I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The fear of the unknown is
Yeah.
like, I don't want to commit to this because it could be turned out in the 7 hours. Like,
Yeah.
even for when I had younger kids and this, like, oh my God, am I going to commit myself to 6 hours? And then you don't go because you're so worried that you're going to get
Yeah.
stuck there and it's going
Yeah.
to. So, if we can alleviate that ahead of time as much as possible, I think we'll get better attendance. I think that's.
Barriers to get more people involved.
Yeah.
We're making important decisions. We should make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Well, that's the town people as well. I mean, if they don't want to come, they're not gonna come. And do anything you want, they're just not gonna come. There's some people who probably never show up, but will do a lot of complaining. The other thing about the second night, as you probably know, everybody and their brother, that they've heard their topic already, they're not gonna come back. I wouldn't come back if my things were discussed already, so that's kind of almost a tough call.
Well, the second part of that is the people who were there for the last 10 articles and left early on Monday, probably would have come back on Thursday to hear their articles. But we lost a lot of people who, through no fault of their own, whether it's childcare or whether it's just too late for them to be out, didn't get a chance to vote on articles that they were interested in. So I think there's a flip side to that. I think your side is right, but I think there's the other side is that we would attract people, especially if they knew that there were 10 articles left, probably gonna go an hour and a half, and there were things that they were really interested in. Well, I mean, we'll
We have
see.
to make sure we set it up that way.
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
there is something to be said to taking down barriers for people, but also I think there's probably more work that can be done to motivate people to actually go, and like what Garfield just said, as opposed to just getting people to show up and be active, as opposed to a Tuesday morning, beat up section.
Yeah.
of what was decided.
The problem is, motivating people to be at a town meeting is tough, because let's face it, it's really important, but it's really dry. And so you may go once,
Very
we may convince you to go once.
Very exciting.
Yes,
Free beer.
California offense.
Yeah, so let's invite Michael and see if we can have a discussion about this. Okay.
You tell them to start talking the same jokes.
Yeah. Anything else? Citizen speak time.
All right.
I always take the longest meetings.
Just state your name and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Karen Johnson, State Road Barrington, and you answered my question, one of my questions, so I'll be back. As you gave me a date to come back for the master plan review. While I was here, a couple of thoughts. One, crosswalks. Who decides the crosswalk? Is it a town or is it a state question?
So for citizen speak, we don't normally answer questions, but I can say this, it's both. Depends if it's a town road or if it's a state road.
Ah, okay, and, I guess my response is to what Eric was saying about how everybody bypasses, the town. Is it because the town's traffic is going very slow? And if it is going slow, there's a couple of things that I have that have been in the back of my mind is we have a crosswalk that is very close to a cross light. And I'm talking about the one by Car Hardware. It's hard to first see people coming out of from the car area and then a stoplight. There's not much distance between. My thought is, why do we have that crosswalk when we've got a safe place to cross and that's at a light? So anyway, that was one thought. The last thought is the dog park. I was wondering, there's the old rising ball field. Has anybody thought? Could that be thought of as a dog park area? And leave it at that, if that's something that is part of that list of the dog park.
Yeah, it's on there, so that's good. Not that, but the dog park is on our moderate priority, so that's fine. It's a good suggestion.
And thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for citizen speak? Seeing no one, select board time. Ben, Garfield, Eric,
All set, thank
Lee,
you.
and nothing, media time. By unanimous consent, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.